Am I the asshole for refusing to share my special recipe with my cousin who wants to use it for her business? So here's the deal. I, 18F, have this amazing dessert recipe that I came up with after months of experimenting in the kitchen. It's a unique twist on a classic treat, and everyone who tries it says it's incredible. My family always asks me to make it for gatherings, and honestly, I take a lot of pride in how much people love it. Recently, my cousin, Jess, 24F, started a small baking business from home. She's been doing pretty well, and I'm happy for her. Last week, at a family dinner, Jess pulled me aside and asked if I'd give her my dessert recipe so she could add it to her menu. I was flattered at first, but then I told her I wasn't comfortable sharing it because it's really personal to me. It's my thing, you know? Jess didn't take that well. She said I was being selfish and that it's not like I'm starting a business or anything, so why would I hoard the recipe? She even got my aunt, her mom, involved, who called me later and said I should support family and not be so stingy. I explained that I wasn't trying to be mean, but I worked really hard to create that recipe, and it's something I'm proud of. Now half my family is calling me petty, and the other half is staying out of it. Jess posted a vague rant on Facebook about people gatekeeping creativity, and how it's impossible to get ahead with unsupportive people. My mom says I should just give her the recipe to keep the peace, but I don't think I'm in the wrong here. So, am I the asshole? Not the asshole if this were tech, or music, or a different industry. No one would expect you to give up your successful creation for someone else's profit. You developed this has gotten you success and praise and a sense of accomplishment within the family. If she takes this and makes it part of her business, will she start showing up with the treats and taking credit? It just sounds like she is fine with screwing you over to get her small business off the ground. In the olden days, people would have shared recipes when asked, but critically made some change to the recipe for the recipient. An ingredient left out, a different amount on something that makes a difference. Hoarding recipes is a time-honored tradition and you are under no obligation to share. I also have recipes that I don't share. Sometimes people ask and the closest I get is making some vague speculation about sharing it in the future. Your recipes are your recipes. Not the asshole. You're not the asshole. At first I thought maybe NAH is here, but Jess posted a vague rant on Facebook about people gatekeeping creativity, and how it's impossible to get ahead with unsupportive people. What an immature little H. If her business will make it or break it over your dessert recipe, she is in the wrong business and doesn't know what she is doing. My mom says I should just give her the recipe to keep the peace. Oh really? Did your mom cater to your tantrums when you were a toddler? Not the asshole. Businesses purchase recipes and give royalties when people are willing to sell. She's offering nothing but attitude. You should just declare that given how the family is treating you, you will no longer bring the dessert to family gatherings. Keep it for your own events, friends. Not the asshole. She can spend months experimenting to find her own damn dessert recipe. You aren't obligated to share it with anyone if you don't want to. If you did give it to her, would you be getting any sort of compensation since she would be selling it at her business? Ask for royalties. Have it named after you. Cash for the recipe too. She's making money off it, then you should too. If she says you're greedy, well, tell her to look in the mirror because she's basically trying to steal your recipe if you get no benefit out of it. Then she is literally being the greedy one, making profit off your hard work. But seriously, it might be a good investment for you if you have the right contract with her. Good passive income if she gives you a cut of sales. Not the asshole. Am I the asshole for telling my cousin that it's not my fault she bought her degree? I am 18 years old, non-binary, closeted, and I live with my parents, my father who is 68 and my mother who is 60. We are closer to my father's family because they live closer to us than my mother's relatives. My father has a brother, 72 male, married to my aunt, 70 female. They have a daughter, my cousin, 40. I can't stand my cousin because she thinks she is better than everyone else and has a degree in psychology. One day, we were at my aunt's house for my niece's birthday, 6 female, my stepbrother's daughter, 48 male. At some point, my cousin and I started talking and she said that she can't stand that all these people are diagnosed with dyslexia because, in her opinion, it's just an excuse for stupid people who don't try hard enough, and that she knows this because she has a degree in psychology. I looked at her and told her that I am severely dyslexic, dysgraphic, and dyscalculic and that I have a really hard time reading and writing. She laughed and told me that I was just stupid. I decided to ignore her comments and went to entertain my niece. When it was time for presents, my cousin gave my niece a book and told her to ask me to read it out loud. Of course, my niece did. I panicked because I have a hard time reading, let alone reading out loud. Luckily, my mother noticed and told my niece that she would read it to her because she loves to read. After my niece moved in with my mother, I confronted my cousin and asked, "What's your problem?" She told me that I just needed to practice and stop pretending. At that point, I got angry and told her that it wasn't my fault that she had bought her degree in and therefore didn't really know what dyslexia was. After this exchange, both she and I went out so as not to ruin the party, but she started insulting me for all my choices, from my appearance to my tattoos, and even said that I wasn't feminine enough. I remained calm, since I'm used to her insults by now, and went back inside to play Lego with my niece. However, today I received a text from my aunt accusing me of being a bitch for insinuating that my cousin's degree was fake. Even though my parents told me I did the right thing, now I'm not sure if I did it right. So am I the asshole? Edit. Hello everyone, I want to thank you for all the nice comments you left. I want to specify one thing: my cousin has a degree in psychology, but luckily she works as a secretary in a company. Then I decided to restrict contact with my aunt and my cousin. I don't want to cut off contact with them to keep peace in the family, but I will limit contact with them a lot. Not the asshole is the holder of a psychology degree. I can confirm that we were taught in details about various learning disabilities and neurological differences such as dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, etc. I wonder if she's ever heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is also a noted psychological theory that states that people who know a small amount about a topic tend to grossly overestimate their actual knowledge, which actual experts believe they always have more to learn. Not the asshole. This 40-year-old woman is 1 ignorant, 2 picking on you, an 18-year-old, like a schoolyard bully? She is due a refund from that degree. Whatever she paid is too much. If she doesn't believe in dyslexia, while claiming a degree in psychology, her degree isn't worth using as toilet paper. I'm going with not the asshole because I would have questioned her degree too. Her psychology degree doesn't mean shit when she clearly has no knowledge about learning disabilities at all. Not the asshole, and I'd like to high-five you for giving a sick burn and retaining your cool. She sounds terrible. For what it's worth, psych degrees are notorious for giving a false sense of understanding how people think. I've never known someone who took one who didn't come out of it with a more knowledgeable than thou attitude. Sounds to me like she's using whatever her degree said, which undoubtedly was not denying concepts like dyslexia in the early 2000s, to validate her own shitty worldview and then leveraging the authority her degree lends her to wield that worldview like a weapon. You're absolutely right to call her out on it, and I'm glad your parents have your back on this. Lol, none of this is true. Am I the asshole for not letting my stepsister borrow my wedding dress? Throwaway in case people involved are in Reddit. Me, F23, got married to my husband about a year ago. It was wonderful and probably the happiest day of my life. My family was involved with everything and I was delighted by it. Including my stepfather, who at first I had a somewhat rocky relationship with, but I grew to appreciate him. His daughter, F26, is an entire different story. We can't get along. I've tried and I'm sure she also has, but it's not about being different, it's because she has always had very similar taste as me. We used to fight about our clothes, our toys and so on. She has a relationship with a man whom I've got to know maybe 3 or 4 times. She announced her relationship with him during my wedding, which annoyed me at first, but I let it go since it was only a 20-second PSA, and became engaged just 4 months after that. Now, she has been planning her wedding and I've tried to help as much as I can since I already had most contacts fresh. She plans to marry a day after Christmas, so I thought everything was set and ready to go. On Saturday, she calls me crying, saying that her wedding dress wouldn't arrive on time since she had some changes done. For some context, no one knows how this dress looks because she wanted to keep it a surprise for everyone, per her own words. I tried to comfort her and I told her I knew some cute boutiques who had nice wedding dresses ready for her date. She cries harder, telling me she didn't want any cheap dress. I tried to calm her down once more before telling her I would call my stepdad to see what we could do. Before I could finish that sentence, she says out of the blue, "Can I wear your dress?" I didn't respond, because I didn't know how to. She goes on, explaining that it would make things less troubling, how she's the same size as me and how much she loved it the second she saw it on me. I don't know what possessed me to simply say, no, and hang up the phone. I've received multiple calls from her fiancé and my stepdad, who I did respond to. He pleaded to me to let her borrow my wedding dress, just like when we were kids. I tried to explain to him that my wedding dress was very special to me, and I wouldn't feel comfortable letting anyone else in it, unless it was my decision. He got super angry with me and hung up. My messages have been exploding with my stepsister, her soon-to-be husband and my stepdad telling me how horrible I am for being so selfish. I know how my stepsister is. I know how dramatic and over the top she can be when she doesn't get her way. But there's a part of me that feels awful for not letting her wear it since it's just a dress and it would make her so happy. But there's that other part of me that remembers how my husband, my mom and I struggled to save for it because it was my dream dress, and I don't want to share something so personal with her. Should I just let her have it just so things don't escalate? Update. I'll go see her now. I'll update when I get home. Update 2. Well, that happened. I arrived at said coffee shop just in time. She took half an hour to get there. I talked as gently as I could with her, explaining how I didn't want her to wear my wedding dress and why, since it was so emotionally attached to me. She went absolutely nuts. She called me a selfish cow, telling me how I'm the most horrible human ever. I tried to calm things down until I just couldn't do it anymore. I knew this was a possibility, so as soon as she started crying, I pulled out her wedding invitation and gave it back to her. I told her I wouldn't be attending the wedding, but I hoped it all went perfectly. Her voice couldn't get louder at this point. She threatened to come to my house and take it from me. I simply left the coffee shop without saying another word, and now I'm home. Not the asshole, I'm calling shenanigans on your stepsister's part. She probably had her eye on your dress since day one, probably commissioned a similar dress, if she even did, hence the surprise, and planned to use your dress as a backup if hers didn't show up in time. Not the asshole. Maybe if it were 10 years after your wedding, you might not have such strong sentimental attachment to the dress. But it's too soon. It's totally fine to not want to see someone else in it, especially someone you've had a rocky relationship with. It just feels icky, like, I don't know, lending her your bed for the wedding night. Be as calm as possible, helpful if you feel inclined to be, but stick to your guns. I'm sorry, but my wedding dress is too personal to share. It's not your fault your stepsister has mangled her planning, but it's not the end of the world for her, either. Just ride this out as serenely as you can, and say, no. Not the asshole. She didn't order a dress, she planned to wear yours from the outset. She and your stepdad and anyone else hounding you can take a flying leap. Make sure your dress is secured. Not the asshole, op. Point blank, you are not required to loan, donate, or permit any of your possessions to be used. Ever. Realistically, a decent probability exists that the dress would not be in the same condition it is now if you let her wear it. Stains, tears, sweat, it is all a part of life. But if you want to hold on to this dress as a keepsake or pass it down to future children, that is something to factor in. Your stepsister absolutely could find another alternative. She doesn't want to. She wants what was yours. It sounds like this is a behavioral pattern of hers. You are not wrong to draw and hold a line. Please don't let anyone guilt you into giving it up. Not the asshole. No is a complete sentence. She asked, was rejected, and now she needs to be a big girl and move on. Throwing tantrums at her age is just tacky. If I were you, I would lock down your dress. Wedding stress plus general craziness can drive people to do insane things like break in and steal a wedding dress. Move the dress, hide it, lock it up, whatever you got to do. Then send her a text message reaffirming your stance. Why? Because you need a paper trail to prove you never gave her permission in case she tries to spin a different story. Then ignore everyone. Hopefully she'll wake up and realize she is wasting time throwing a tantrum instead of looking for her own dress. Not the asshole. The first red flag was announcing their relationship on your wedding. Am I the asshole for laughing at my friend's sunburn? I'm from Brisbane, and my friend from the USA came down and visited a few days ago. The first day, we went to the beach in the evening, and I pointed out that if we were going in the day, he needed to put on sunscreen. He didn't believe me, and said something along the lines of, back where I'm from, nobody really wears sunscreen, it's just the sun, it can't really hurt you. I pointed out his skin is very, very pale and it will be burnt to a crisp if he doesn't put on sunscreen, and he said, yeah, but I overheard someone say it's only going to be 30 degrees tomorrow, that's like really cold. If it's that cold, surely I don't need sunscreen. I tried to explain to him the difference between Celsius and Fahrenheit as well as explaining that the temperature isn't what gives you a sunburn, but I ended up realizing he was probably really jet-lagged and sleep-deprived, and so his brain probably wasn't working as well as it normally does. He'd just been on a flight. The next day we went to the beach again, and while we were walking there I asked if he put on sunscreen. He said no, and that he was a real tough man and could handle the sun, and even made a remark insinuating that Australians are weak for putting on sunscreen. I offered him some of my sunscreen and he declined. Despite this, we had a good time at the beach. However, the next day we had planned to go to the movies, and I noticed that he was burnt all over his body. Like he was bright red and obviously in pain from having his skin cooked by the sun. I couldn't stop myself from laughing, and I said, bro, you should have just put on some sunscreen. Then you wouldn't look like a big beetroot. And he did not like being compared to a root vegetable while he was in pain from his full body sunburn, and he chose to cancel the movies trip until I became less annoying. I went back home, and couldn't resist the urge to comment on social media on one of his pictures from the beach trip the day before, and I commented, did you get a nice tan? Not the asshole, your friend is an idiot and got rightfully mocked for being one. First he seemingly doesn't know what Celsius is, then he tries to act all macho by saying he doesn't need sunscreen, then gets all pissy when he ends up getting sunburned and you make a relatively tame joke at his expense. And his ego was so fragile that he cancelled spending time with you. A friend he flew across the ocean to see that he only has limited time with? He got what he deserved, maybe he'll finally learn his lesson. Not the asshole. He mocked you for telling him to wear sunscreen. The least you can do is return the favor, now that he's suffering the consequences of his own stupidity. Does he know how to take care of the sunburn? Anti-inflammatories, antihistamines, yes. Sunburn damages cells that release histamines when damaged, cool baths and moisturizer. My husband's relative from Scotland ended up hospitalized in a similar situation. His 15+ didn't do a damn thing. Not the asshole. I just don't understand this weird concept of, I'm so manly I can take on the sun. Didn't work out well for Icarus either. Not the asshole. A lot of non-Aussies really don't seem to get that the Cancer Council has had the slip, slop, slap slogan and its updated variations for a reason. 1 in 3 Aussies will get skin cancer. Number 1 in 3. Those are some awful odds. What part of the US is this person supposedly from, because unless he is from, say Seattle, this sounds made up, complete with the stereotype ugly American real man, who then gets his comeuppance. Except that large parts of the US are also warm and sunny and people routinely put on sunscreen, so like this story sounds a bit sus.